The best theology that people can ever hear from you is the way that you treat them. If I could have any one thing, I would have my two sons believe the gospel. And not just say that they believe it, but live it out. Because that's what James is talking about here. Because it's so easy for us to just spout out words and say, yeah, I believe. Yeah, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. Especially in the Bible Belt, we see this all the time. And James is trying to speak to us about how important it is that what we profess and how we live our lives, that the two work in tandem with one another, and not that the way that we live argues against what we profess. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says, that's the key word, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? Now, here's the understood or the expectation that James has by the way that he's formulated this sentence. He's wanting you to say no. Okay, so I'm blown. That's the answer. No, that kind of a faith that does not have works, cannot save him. Verse 15. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one. You do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? Was not Abraham, our father, justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. And he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. And in the same way, was not also Rahab the prostitute justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way? For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. Good works are really the way that we authenticate our faith that we profess with our lips. Maybe that's a good way of really giving you the whole thing at once. That your good works and my good works, they authenticate the faith that we profess with our lips. That's, if you just get that, we're good enough to head home, okay? But let's just walk through this a little bit more, because what James is rather saying is that we need not to have a faith of words, because that's what we see in verses 4 through 17. In verses 4 through 17, 14 through 17 rather, what good is it, brothers, if a man claims he has faith but no deeds? Can that faith save him? No. Now, suppose that you say to someone, hey, go, be warm and be filled. And what you are saying and what you are doing do not match up with one another. Let me give you an example in the Fikes house. It cost us $1,000 this week, so I hope you will listen up. Okay? It was Monday morning. We went into the house and oh well, it's 65 degrees. Okay, let's bump up the temperature to about 70 degrees. Get some coffee. Another 30 minutes later, it's now 64 degrees. Let's bump it up to 72. Gets to 63 degrees. You get where I'm going with this. You keep hitting that thermostat, and guess what? What it's registering and what the pump is putting out are two completely different things. So there is a breakdown somewhere. So hello, Russell and Abbott, could you come over here? Yes, they do. They come over to our house and they say, here's the problem. You've got this circuit board thingy. I think that's the word they used, thingy. It's a technical term. and it is busted somehow. It don't work no more. So you need this part. They don't make this part anymore. We think we can find one over here. Hopefully we'll have it in 2 weeks or whatever. They have it 2 days later. Praise Jesus, okay? But in the meantime, we have to get all these space heaters from Walmart, which they run $20, so that was okay. But the point is that what is said on the thermostat and what is actually coming out in the pump were completely two different things. That's what it's like when we as Christians are saying that we are one thing, but we're doing a completely different thing. There is no heat. And the thing is, we are completely intolerant of a cold house, but we're willing to put up with cold hearts. That's what I find in my own life as well. Is that this faith that consists in words alone, this does not say, this kind of a faith, you can put air bunnies over it if you want to, that this kind of faith is not really faith at all. This faith is dead. Now, look with me at verse 17, at verse 20, at verse 26. In those three verses, you will see that kind of refrain of faith without works is dead. It's repeated 3 times. If the Bible does that for you in any one section, you know what the theme is, okay? You know what's going on. Because it's kind of like a song. If it keeps coming back to that chorus is the hook that leads you back, okay? Into what are you supposed to be thinking. But in contrast with a faith that really is no faith at all, it's just a faith of words, what James is calling us to is a faith that works. Now, it begins in verse 18, and part of the problem with verse 18, if you're reading in the original language, is there's no punctuation in Greek. So all this punctuation that you see here in your translation of the scriptures, it's not there in the original language. So we're just doing our best at trying to put together, okay, here's what's going on in the rest of the book of James, here's what the rest of theology says. So let's skip over that, because I've just said this is above my pay grade, because I know it's above most theologians' pay grade, and I'm comfortable with that. But let's move on to verse 19, and we'll start to get more of the gist of what's going on here in this passage. In verse 19, we read, "You believe that there is one God, good. Even the demons believe that and shudder." Okay, now this is going to get us back on track here. What is James saying? What James is saying is, what good is your systematic theology if it's just something you're declaring and not something that you're living out? Because demons have an absolutely pristine theology. The demons know Greek better than I will ever know Greek. They know Hebrew better than I will ever know Hebrew. They know Aramaic better than I ever will. But that doesn't do them any good, because to them it is rat poison. But for me, as I say that that there is one God, that is good, as long as there are works that follow along with that. Because if I believe that there's only one God, then that means that I'm not him, right? There's one God and I'm not him. And so when he tells me what to do, guess what? Do it. It's no more complicated. We overcomplicate this matters. Instead, verse 20, you foolish man, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Actually, James, yes, we do. We do want an example. And James says, great, I'll give you 2 examples. Again, going back to Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. We're not saved by good works. We're saved for good works. The reason why we have salvation at all is so that we can be people of good works, so that we can be people of mercy, so that we can bless other people. That is the point. And that is the point going all the way back to Genesis chapter 12, verses 2 through 3, when God says, here, I'm going to give you all these blessings so that you can bless the other nations. We, as the people of God, are called to do the same thing, but in a much smaller version of it. We're not in charge of nations. We're just in charge of our homes and ourselves. And so we're supposed to follow what God's word says here. And he's saying that your faith, it must be an active kind of faith. An example is Abraham. Now, Abraham and Rahab, I want to play off of both of them just so you can see that they are very similar in certain ways and very dissimilar in certain ways. Notice, number one, that Abraham, he's a patriarch. He has a high status in their world. Rahab is a prostitute. She has a super low status. So what James is, he's showing that regardless of the examples that you're going to use, you can't have 2 that are much more opposite than these 2. But in both of these cases, they had faith that led to works that was revealing what was going on the inside. Because the best theology that people can ever hear from you is the way that you treat them. Also, we see that he showed faith in God. He feared God. He took a risk. And Rahab does a similar thing. She showed faith in God. She feared God. She takes a risk. So we see that they are very dissimilar in one sense, but they are very similar in the one sense that matters the most. Why make this big deal? Because mature disciples have a faith that works. I thought this was interesting. There was this study in 2019 from the Global Wellness Institute. And they found that Americans spend $265 billion on physical activity. We're talking gym memberships, yoga pants, all the stuff. And yet, for all of this spending, we rank first in spending. We rank 143rd globally for actual participation in physical activity. I mean, you'd say that is the great fitness scam, wouldn't you? But see, just because you have a gym membership does not mean that you are going to get fit. This is what James wants us to understand, that our life is not and our faith is not supposed to be merely a bunch of talking points. We're supposed to be people who, when we speak and when we listen and when we act, we are reflecting the very face of Jesus Christ and leaving the results to God.